This is a download from BFM 89.9, the business station.
Good afternoon, this is Tech Talk, and with me today on the phone is Zachary Wolff. Zachary Wolff's experimentation in subverting computer systems began in the early 90s. Barriers created by pay-per-minute internet and dial-up busy signals pushed him to explore alternative means of access. Not long after, he unintentionally blue-screened his mom's computer with a virus he brought home on a floppy disk from his high school programming lab. Naturally, a series of intentional blue screens would soon follow, and these experiences set the foundation for his future endeavors in security research. Zach, your area of expertise are in forensics, intrusion detections, and malware. So what exactly is forensics in this context?
Thanks. Yeah, the context here is going to be primarily revolving around understanding situations within, specific computer events and situations. So if a compromise occurs, or a piece of malware has been run on a machine, forensics perspective is going to help you understand what happened on that machine, and you can do that through a number of different ways, kind of collecting log data and various different other pieces of information about the machine that help you understand that event and piece together what happened.
What about log data? What is it used for, and does everyone leave a trail?
Yeah, so log data is obviously used for a number of different things, but from a forensics perspective, it can give us quite a bit of information, about what's going on that particular computer system. And there's a lot of talk about what is logged on the internet and who has access to what. Primarily from a forensics perspective, we're not necessarily as interested in logging personal data and those types of things, but looking at firewall logs, intrusion detection system logs, other security devices, and then also logs that are generated by most computer systems, whether it's Linux, Windows, or Mac. Just logs that those systems are generating to understand when the machine came online, who may have been on that machine, what internet IP addresses it was using when it connected, and that sort of thing. So, there's a lot of different, a whole lot of information available there. But from a forensics perspective, we're primarily just interested in that post information.
What about sites like Hide Proxy and HideMyAss.com?
Yeah, so the idea behind a site like one of the proxy services you mentioned, Hide My Ass specifically, is they claim to provide immunity in a sense as far as anyone seeing who you are as a person or connecting back your internet communications. There's a real challenge that they have because certain laws hold certain companies to keep logs of that data, and if you're really looking for true anonymity, there are other solutions out there for those proxy services. You have to really be careful and read the terms of service to understand what they're doing because they very well may offer up information about who you are and if requested from certain agencies.
Back to the log data, what can a hacker do with log data?
Hacking with log data is it's sort of obscure. Some of the more interesting techniques that can be used are injecting certain information into logs. So if a website were to not, for example, if a website didn't secure their log data properly that website was generating, an attacker can actually inject some specific code into the logs itself. And if you're able to access a website's log page, you can then, in certain cases, pull off exploits against that machine itself. So that's more of an attack perspective. There isn't a lot of discussion around using log data to attack, but primarily people think of it as a defensive measure, but it certainly should be considered as an offensive measure as well.
Okay, how so?
So another example of offensive use is a project I'm working on now, doing some research. I'm going to be presenting on it, and what we're doing is throwing malformed HTTP header data into a website. So essentially, when your browser or your cell phone smartphone makes a request to a website, oftentimes it's going to send a few pieces of information along with that request to the website. So what we're doing is we're sending malformed data from different characters into those fields, and we're looking for certain websites that attempt to log that data. And if they are not logging it appropriately, so to speak, so if they don't store that data in a clean way, if they're injecting it into a database and they aren't protecting it, we may be able to then get access to that database essentially by simply making a request to a website. And so that's another example of using log data as an offensive technique.
Now, should everyone be concerned or just a few particular types of netizens?
Well, I mean, certainly it's going to depend on what you're doing and in respect to what you want to be concerned about. Remaining private on the internet is a challenge that I don't think anyone has really solved yet. I certainly wouldn't advocate for the average person being worried. I think that a lot of times being aware of what you're doing and paying attention to what you're clicking on and those sorts of things can really help, understand what's going on with your computer. Obviously, companies and businesses and organizations that have things stored on their network are going to be more of the ones that should be paying closer attention. I think the end user should be mindful of their own activities and be cautious about giving out credit card data and that type of thing. But, really the bigger businesses, I think, are the ones that need to pay more attention to understanding what's going on their systems and where the important data lives and who has access to it and that sort of thing.
I'm here with Zachary Wolff from Logarithm, and in just a moment we'll talk about privacy laws and encryption methods. Tech Talk BFM 89.9. This is Tech Talk on Enterprise. I'm Frida Liu, and I'm here with Zachary Wolff from Logarithm. And now early on we spoke about log data and the security impact. What protects user data logs in organizations' database from being misused? And are there privacy laws, encryption methods to stop abuse of this kind?
So there's going to be quite a wide spectrum, and if you look across, it is going to be divided out upon nations, and as you get down to it, probably states in the United States, and different separations are going to denote what is required to protect certain types of data. And in the United States, there's different regulations around PCI is one example of credit card regulation, and it was designed by Visa and MasterCard and rolled out in its attempt to establish safe measures around credit card data. What we know about these regulations is that in many cases they simply don't work. It's a very difficult challenge to regulate and put methods into place to secure these computer systems. But in general, a lot of people have a hard time understanding how to secure the systems in the first place. But to make a regulation that rolls that type of security out. Moving beyond the regulatory aspects of protecting databases and data, there's a real challenge for software vendors there as well, and that they want to release a product or an application that is easy to use and works. It's a difficult time to make a sale for a product when it takes quite a bit of time to set it up and tune it, when in reality that's how it should be. If you're going to install a database that's going to protect your user data and sensitive information for your customers, you really do need to take the time to understand the software you're deploying and do it right and do it well. So the software industry is at a challenge because they're trying to strike a balance between software that's easy to use and software that's also secure. And what's really happened up until now is probably that they've fallen on the side of rolling out software that's easy to deploy. There are a lot of examples you can see of this when we look at certain databases. Look at some of the Microsoft databases that have been released over the years, and inherently, there are a few simple tweaks and changes you can make to those databases that are going to make it considerably more secure. And those flags or switches are usually not placed on by default for the sake of functionality. So by the time it sort of trickles down to the end user and the average website, your data is generally, not to be considered too safe. It's quite a challenge.
You've been around in the industry for some time now, and in your opinion, how has the information security industry evolved, and what do you think will be the next big threat?
Well, let's see. So it is the evolution, sort of what I've seen around the security industry is on the very bottom line, you had a lot of people that were genuinely interested in hacking and taking apart systems and securing data. And there were some very solid pieces of technology that were put into place, things that made a lot of sense and seemed to work really well, firewalls and intrusion detection systems. And there was a lot of companies and a lot of vendors made a lot of money off these products, and they've sort of developed out. And what we found is ultimately that they're not really, there is no end-all, be-all solution. And I think that that's sort of a crisis that the security industry is not quite ready to face yet at this point in time. They're really at a struggle to push product and sell software, and it's probably not a good thing at this point. likely happen is, we're going to continue to see systems compromised and more high-profile attacks. If you use your imagination and consider the amount of attacks that we've seen in the last 2 years, and consider what's to come, it's very likely that we'll probably see some really interesting and high-profile type of attacks. Now, this is, as an example, recently there have been some Facebook pages compromised for Major League Baseball teams in the United States and these types of things, and sort of used to push out jokes or interesting ideas that are different sorts. So I would think we would see a lot of that, and hopefully we can get a handle on keeping some of these databases more secure. And I think the reality is that the people that have the real skill sets around compromising computer systems and are extremely dedicated to the cause are not necessarily motivated by money, and they're going to be the ones to look out for in the upcoming years. And we're going to see probably more hacktivism. I would expect to see quite a bit of that, which is an incredibly, from a defensive perspective, something that it's very different, very difficult to conceptualize how to, respond to an attack like that. And maybe better off considering that if your business is operating unethically, that you were probably a considerably higher target for hacktivists, and that I would be on the lookout certainly in the next couple of years.
You mentioned a little earlier about companies moving out with products and maybe, it is a profit motive. So are we ready? I guess I'm not too sure if you think we're ready for these kind of attacks, but what do you think needs to be done in order to make sure that we can cope with these possible threats?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and that's a question that a lot of people are asking right now. And I think that if we start at an individual level and we work and focus on privacy of the individual and then build off that foundation, I think that that's where we're going to find the most success. And, if, we rely on the companies and moving even towards ISPs and internet service providers, telecos, the people that lay the fiber and the internet down for us, if we look to those folks for privacy and so forth, it's going to be a challenge. There's always going to be a trust relationship there that someone will have the opportunity to exploit. So if we look heavily at individual privacy and, cryptography around securing our communications as individuals, I think that that's probably where we're going to see the most success in really letting the internet thrive and be a great tool that everyone can use and communicate freely with.
Well, I've been speaking to Zachary Wolff from Logarithm, discussing log data and attack signatures. This is Tech Talk, BFM 89.9.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To find more great interviews, go to bfm.my or find us on iTunes. BFM 89.9, the business station.